another contract mental health program somewhere, we thought it would be really important to highlight both of these projects here at the seminar. And the fact that both of these clubhouses were willing and able to schlep their, you know, their art all the way from California and Wisconsin and set that up in this beautiful gallery. Have you all seen the exhibits upstairs?
Yeah.
So, you know, kudos to you guys, because they're, you know, this is in a hotel with, you know, staff who they don't know, and just trying to get all that done. But as you can see, it's beautifully, beautifully done. So we thought it would be helpful and useful to all of you to hear from their experiences, why they did this, how they did this, and some advice to you about how you could go about doing something that was, you know, indigenous to your own community, not to do what Grand Avenue did or what Meeting Place did, but something that grows out of who you are in your community to have the same kind of impact on your local communities. So Grand Avenue Club is going to speak first, and we have Rachel Forman is the executive director of Grand Avenue Club in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Colleen Kassner is the Grand Avenue Club artist in residence, which is something most clubhouses probably don't have. Colleen will tell a little bit.
I'll tell you how that came about.
Okay, take it away, Grand Avenue Club.
Okay. I'll go first because I think it's important to give a little bit of the history behind my relationship to Grand Avenue Club, to get a perspective of how the whole project was born and came to fruition. In 1995 and 96, when Grand Avenue Club was about 4 years old, I did my social work internship there, and I loved it. I found the community and the people I worked with to be stimulating, loving, caring. Rachel was a wonderful mentor to me. Pam Weiser was my supervisor for my internship, and I loved the people there. Some of the people I still know from there. They were very surprised a few years later. But it just really, really rounded out my life. I felt very useful and very needed there. And then my internship ended, and I became very ill with bipolar disorder. I did finish the university program, however, I became more and more ill and dropped out of society and lost all my friendships and connections to people for about 5 years. I had a relationship with the guy who was photographing us here. He was my boyfriend then, he's now my husband. And we had broken up because of my problems with alcohol and the bipolar disorder. And then one day I got a letter from him and he said, "How are you doing?" And I thought, well, not too well. But we started to get back together. And I went through a period of time where I was in and out of psychiatric hospitals on an average of every 3 months. Part of the problem was, and I didn't know it at the time, I was being severely over-medicated. I had a psychiatrist who had me on like 15 different medications, each one of them causing side effects that, you know, and I think other people have experienced this too. I finally found help that got me off of those medications, and when I came home from that hospitalization, Philo looked at me and said, "Here's some paint. Why don't you start to paint?" And I had always been a writer and a poet and expressive, so I thought, why not? I sat down with some watercolors and I started to do a few florals and some watercolors. And I loved it. It felt really good. So I got some acrylics and I started painting acrylics, and that felt even better. And I started to paint in earnest. I had never painted seriously before in my life. This was about 2002. And I started to paint in earnest. So for about 5 years, I was on my own, I was painting, and I was starting to show locally in town, galleries, little coffee shops and that. And after about 5 years, I was showing as the solo artist in a coffee shop in town. and decided that I would love to expand my audience. And somebody said, well, why don't you do a benefit? And I thought, that's a good idea. And so the first place I thought of was, I'll give you one guess, Grand Avenue Club. So I contacted Rachel Forman. It had been 10 years since my internship, and they had not heard one word from me. So 10 years, almost to the day later, I contacted Rachel Forman and asked her, would you like to do something with art? And she did. And we started what has become a really great collaboration for about 6 years now. We did a benefit show at a little coffee shop in Milwaukee. I had members of GAC bring their artwork and show their work in the coffee shop. We did a reception for the artwork on Friday night, and we invited board members and people from the community and people from the public in to see the artwork and meet the artists. The next night we had a music event, and we had musicians from our associations and everything come in and play music, and there was dancing. And then on Sunday afternoon, we had spoken word, and we had people from the GAC Writers Group come up and read their poetry. I read some of my poetry, and we had a wonderful time, and the benefit was a great success. But it wasn't enough. I felt like there was more to do. So I said to Rachel, you know, I could do something with your members with art. And she goes, you know, I've always wanted to have a gallery. And it kind of went like this over, you know, like, that was nice. And I'm like, wait a minute, no. So we worked for a couple years, and we started with a show with an artist, Susan Weinreich from New York. We did a very large show for her to kind of launch the art. And then we started to develop the gallery, and the gallery is open during our business hours, and we do shows 4 times a year, and we invite the public in to see the artwork done by members, community artists, me, and many other people in different media. And it's been very successful. However, there was still something that needed to be said. And during this time, I had discovered a series of photos that Philo had taken of me during a manic episode. Most guys would call the doctor, mine grabbed a camera. But he took some photos of me during this episode, and it had been about 5 or 6 years. I found the photos, and I thought, oh my God, I have to paint these. So I did a series of paintings called the Manic series, and it was exactly what it said. The photos are powerful and moving, and they show the painful dark side of mental illness. But that's not the whole story. And after that show ended, I felt a real need to continue with the story. And so I said to Rachel, what if I did portraits of members in the clubhouse, of the members, and we compiled it into a show? But we had to find the funding, obviously, because it's very expensive to paint the portraits. Supplies are outrageously expensive. So we applied for a grant from, it's very prestigious in our area, the Mary Knoll Fund. Mary Knoll was a local artist who left a very nice endowment for the arts, and we were awarded it. And the portrait project, Faces of Resilience, was born. And I had 1 year to paint 20 portraits of members. I did a lot of painting. Some of the paintings were very easy. They went onto the canvas, and it was 1 or 2 weeks, and they were done. Other paintings were very difficult. Doing those paintings, I started to realize that that process was very similar to the process of recovery that many of us have gone through. It has its starts and its stops. Sometimes it's really successful, other times it doesn't work. You set it aside and you start over. And that was starting to be the feeling, and there was, again, more to say. And then the group portraits. We received another grant from this organization to do the group portraits and create the book Facing Forward, an Artist, a Community, and Stories of Resilience. And I had 8 months to do 4 group portraits. I did 6 because there was a lot to say and I had to keep doing them. And it continued the story, and each time I did a painting, I kept thinking of the people in the painting and how powerful these stories are and how very powerful an image is. And we look at the images in the newspaper of, like the topic this morning, of the violence that is associated with mental illness and that. And I wanted to create a new image through portraiture, which has also been always the realm of the wealthy. The wealthy could afford to have artistic portraits, and it was historically part of the wealthy. But I wanted to do the portraits, and these members have become my friends. I work with them day to day. They're fellow artists. I mean, it was very much an extension of my life. Wanted to do the portraits, and it has made a difference in my life. I have grown as a human being. I have seen the tremendous power and drive of the human spirit through the portraits, and have discovered a whole new avenue of expression, and I'm very grateful for that. And I think now I will turn it over to Rachel, who will tell the other story.
So the first thing I want to say is that the international standards for Clubhouse development programs have made me a better person. And if you remember, I'm sure everybody does remember, standard number 1 says what? Everyone together. Membership is a voluntary and a lifetime opportunity. And I've extended that. In my old life, or I think in many of our lives, it's my goodness, I haven't heard from her for 10 years. What does she want now? I've decided that anybody that was ever involved with Grand Avenue Club who returns for any reason whatsoever that can be helpful and help us grow and help us have opportunities that we don't have is welcome back. And I was thrilled to hear from Colleen. I used to drive by the apartment house that she lived in when she did her internship with us and wonder where Colleen was. She was really wonderful as one of the students at our clubhouse. The other thing I want to tell you as a clubhouse director who is artistically incompetent is that we do a lot of planning at clubhouses. It's really important to plan. We have strategic plans, we have budgets, we have all kinds of plans. We have plans about how much TE we're going to develop. But sometimes it's really, really important for the clubhouse community to be able to respond to a spark. And what I mean by a spark is not fire. Robby just winced. I meant a good idea. And I have always seen Colleen Kassner as a person with good ideas. And I was taken by her in the same way that I'm taken by so many of our members. And the relationships that we have at Grand Avenue Club, what do they mean? We talk so much about relationships. We reveal ourselves to each other as we get to know each other. And my relationship with Colleen, she is not officially a member of our clubhouse, but we are friends. And what I've enjoyed about our clubhouse is certainly there are members, there is staff. We've anointed her artist in residence, whether we get funding or not. She is our artist in residence. It's really about learning from each other, stimulating each other, revealing yourself to each other. And this project